The debate over the Muslim veil comes at a time when an alarming number of British-born Muslims are being indoctrinated to hate the very country that they live in.
These young men are willing to kill thousands of innocent men, women and children.
After the attacks of 9/11, there was a big push to integrate the nearly 2 million Muslims into British society. Easier said than done. A recent survey of Muslims shows that just 44% of 18 to 24-year-olds feel Britain is their country. 30% would rather live under Sharia law than democracy. 28% would like to see Great Britain become an Islamic state. And an overwhelming majority, 81%, consider themselves Muslim first and British second. Many also find it difficult living in a modern society while remaining devout.
How do you find a way to bring those two worlds together?
I mean, it's not an issue of bringing the two worlds together. I have chosen my path and I will stick to it.
Muhammad is part of the second and third generation of British Muslim immigrants who are struggling the most to find their place in society. Melanie Phillips has documented the rise of Islamic extremism in Britain.
They don't feel they belong because they are stranded between their parents' values and society, which they reject, and the decadence of Britain.
These youngsters are not only detaching themselves from society, but are becoming more zealous in their faith.
They fall victim to radical Islamists who tell them that Britain and Western values are to be despised.
Living in this world, in the Western culture, be patient,
To avoid such evils, Muhammad Uddin, like so many other Muslim immigrants, moved into so-called parallel communities where there's little hint of mainstream British culture.
So they move into an area where there are lots of Muslims and lots of South Asians.
Areas like East London, which has the highest Muslim population in the country.
I feel very safe here as a Muslim. We can practice our faith with no distractions.
Spend a few minutes on the streets of East London and you'd think you are in some Middle East capital. There's nothing here that you can't buy, mostly products Muslims want.
There's no doubt that Islam today is having a profound impact on British culture and society. Take, for example, the bank across the street. It offers Sharia checking accounts, and increasingly Muslims are flocking to such banks.
Muslims are forbidden under Islamic Sharia law to do business with banks that earn or charge interest.
I'm a Muslim, and this bank, the Islamic bank, it's following the rule and regulation of Islam.
Parallel communities like the one here in East London are emerging all across Europe. And in fact, some Muslims like to claim these areas are off limits to non-Muslims. Case in point, when Britain's Home Secretary John Reid visited East London in September, Abu Izzadeen, a radical Islamic leader, shouted at Reid saying, "Please come to Muslim area!" Reid replied, "My friend,
there is no part of this country which any of us are excluded from."
Britain has prided itself on being a multicultural society, but Melanie Phillips says multiculturalism has instead allowed radical Islamists to flourish.
The host community is saying multiculturalism. Everyone's culture is identical value minority to minority, and identical value minority to majority. So the majority is saying, you want to integrate? Forget it. We don't want you to because we no longer have any belief in what you're going to integrate into. That's really the damage, where the damage has been done.
Phillips also says that since 9/11, the British government has bent over backwards to appease and accommodate the radical Muslims.
It's taken the line of least resistance, and it very foolishly, in my view, believes that if you give in to the demands being made by extremists, you kind of make the problem go away. Well, we don't. We know that that's not true. It makes it worse.
There is growing sentiment here in Britain and throughout Europe that Islam and Western values don't mix. Some are even beginning to question the idea of multiculturalism. For now, though, criticism of Islam has once again sparked anger among British Muslims, this time over the veil. And once again, Britain faces the challenge of how to win Muslim hearts and minds that appear closed for the moment. George Thomas, CBN News, London.